The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Earth Defense Fleet flagship Resilience. Commander Jack Davis had spent 43 years on Earth before joining the space program, and even after 5 years serving as the fleet's commander, he still found himself amazed by the endless void that surrounded their small blue planet. Today, however, the beauty of space was overshadowed by fear. "Commander," a voice called from behind him. "They're approaching the outer defense perimeter." Davis turned to see Lieutenant Emma Wilson standing at attention, her usual confident expression replaced by barely hidden concern. "How many?" Davis asked, though he already knew the answer. The alien fleet had been detected 3 days ago, and Earth's long-range scanners had been counting ships ever since. 30 capital ships, sir. Over 200 support vessels." Wilson's voice remained steady despite the implications. Earth's combined defense fleet consisted of only 43 ships, hastily built after humans had discovered faster-than-light travel just 20 years ago. Davis nodded and followed Wilson to the bridge. The command center buzzed with controlled tension as officers monitored their stations and prepared for what might be humanity's last stand. "Put the approaching fleet on the main screen," Davis ordered as he settled into his command chair. The view screen flickered to life, showing the vast armada of the Galactic Empire. Their ships were sleek and predatory, clearly designed by beings who had mastered space travel thousands of years before humans had even invented the wheel. "Open a channel to all Earth vessels," Davis said, "and get me a secure line to the Defense Council." As Wilson carried out his orders, Davis studied the alien ships. The Empire had made contact with Earth just 6 months ago, when a single diplomatic vessel had entered the solar system. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Empire, a coalition of 27 species that had ruled this arm of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. The main screen split to show Admiral Thomas, the head of the Earth Defense Council. "They're earlier than we expected, Commander," Thomas said without preamble. "Yes, sir. Their engines must be more advanced than our initial estimates." Thomas's face was grim. "Has there been any communication from them?" "Not yet, but—" Davis began, only to be interrupted by his communications officer. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel of the alien fleet." Davis exchanged a look with Admiral Thomas. "Put it through on both feeds." The screen changed again to show Ambassador Rolk, the Empire's diplomat. His purple-scaled face showed no emotion as he regarded the humans. "Commander Davis," Rolk said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "I trust you have considered the Empire's generous offer." Davis straightened in his chair. "Ambassador, we have transmitted our response to your proposal. Earth will not surrender its sovereignty to the Empire." Rolk's head tilted slightly. "Then I must inform you that the Council of Elders has declared your species to be a potential threat to galactic stability. Your rapid technological advancement from primitive tools to faster-than-light travel in less than 10,000 years is unprecedented and concerning." "We call it innovation, Ambassador," Davis replied. "It's a human trait." "It is dangerous," Rolk stated flatly. "Species that develop too quickly do not learn the necessary restraint to wield advanced technology responsibly. The Empire has governed this sector for millennia by carefully managing technological advancement." Admiral Thomas spoke up from his feed. "And yet you refuse to share that technology with us unless we submit to Imperial rule." "Correct," Rolk said. "You must understand your place in the galactic order before you can be trusted with such knowledge." Davis leaned forward. "Ambassador, humans have a long history of resisting those who demand our submission. We would prefer peaceful relations with the Empire, but we will defend our freedom." Rolk's expression remained unchanged. "Your preference is noted but irrelevant. You have 1 Earth hour to reconsider. After that, the Imperial fleet will demonstrate the consequences of defiance." The transmission ended abruptly. "Well, that was predictable," Thomas sighed. "Are all ships in position, Commander?" Davis checked the tactical display. "Yes, sir, though I don't think our current formation will hold against their numbers." "It doesn't need to," Thomas reminded him. "It just needs to buy us enough time to implement Protocol Omega." Davis nodded, though the thought of their last resort plan made his stomach tighten. Protocol Omega wasn't a conventional military strategy. It was something entirely new, developed in secret by Earth's best scientists and strategists after they realized they couldn't match the Empire's military might. Speaking of which, Thomas continued, is the package ready? Yes, sir. All ships. Have it loaded and ready for simultaneous broadcast. Good. Thomas's expression grew solemn. Commander Davis, you understand that if this fails, humanity will likely face extinction or subjugation. Every human will either die or live as a second-class citizen under Imperial rule for generations. I understand, sir. Then I am officially authorizing the use of Protocol Omega. May God help us all. The Admiral's feed went dark. Davis took a deep breath and turned to his crew. Signal all ships, battle stations. Prepare Protocol Omega for deployment on my mark. The bridge erupted into action as officers rushed to comply. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the ship as crew members hurried to their posts. Lieutenant Wilson approached Davis. Sir, preliminary scans of the Imperial fleet show their weapons are powering up. They're not waiting for the hour to expire. Typical, Davis muttered. They never intended to give us time to reconsider. They just wanted to see if we'd panic and surrender immediately. Wilson hesitated before asking, Are we sure about Protocol Omega, sir? It's never been tested against alien technology. No, Davis admitted. We're not sure, but it's the only card we have left to play. The tactical officer's voice cut through the bridge. Imperial ships are moving into attack formation. They're targeting our largest vessels first. Davis stood and faced the view screen. The vast alien armada was spreading out, surrounding Earth's much smaller fleet in a classic encirclement maneuver. All ships, maintain position, he ordered. Do not fire unless fired upon. Sir, Wilson said quietly. The scientists who developed Protocol Omega estimated only a 30% chance of success. Davis nodded. I know. But even a small chance is better than none. The first energy beams from the Imperial ship streaked across space, striking 2 Earth vessels at the edge of the formation. The ship's shields flared and failed almost instantly, their hulls breaching in multiple places. Casualties reported on the Defender and Guardian, the tactical officer announced. Their life support systems are failing. Davis clenched his jaw. Send rescue shuttles and open a channel to all Earth vessels. When the communications officer nodded, he continued, All ships, this is Commander Davis, commence Protocol Omega. I repeat, commence Protocol Omega. Throughout the Earth fleet, communications officers executed the same command. Instead of returning fire with conventional weapons, every human ship activated a special broadcasting array aimed directly at the Imperial fleet. Davis watched the view screen as the Imperial ships continued their advance. In moments, they would be in range to destroy the resilience and most of Earth's remaining fleet. Protocol Omega active, sir, Wilson reported. Transmitting now. Davis nodded grimly. Now we find out if we understand our enemy as well as we think we do. The bridge fell silent as humanity's last hope, not a weapon but a message, streaked across the void toward the approaching armada. And if we're wrong? Wilson whispered. Davis kept his eyes fixed on the view screen and the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Then the history of humanity ends today. High Commander Trell stood on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Inevitable Victory, watching with satisfaction as his ship surrounded the primitive human vessels. His tall, slender form towered over the other officers, his gray skin gleaming under the soft blue lights of the bridge. The humans are not responding to our final warning, High Commander, said Officer Kell, Trell's second-in-command. Unlike Trell, Kell came from one of the Empire's newer member species with 4 arms and eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums. As expected, Trell replied, his voice calm and measured. These humans are an anomaly in our records. They developed from primitive tool users to space travelers in less than 10,000 years. The Council of Elders views them as unstable and dangerous. Kell nodded in agreement. Their history shows constant conflict among themselves. If they bring such behavior into the broader galaxy, Precisely why we must either control them or eliminate them, Trell concluded. He turned to the weapons officer. Begin the attack sequence. Target their largest vessels first. The Imperial ships fired in perfect unison, energy beams cutting through space toward Earth's fleet. Trell watched dispassionately as the first human ships took direct hits, their shields failing almost instantly against the Empire's superior weapons. Primitive technology, he commented. Their shields cannot even withstand our lowest power settings. What puzzled him, however, was the humans' response, or rather, their lack of one. Instead of attempting to evade or return fire, the human ships maintained their formation. "High Commander," called the science officer from her station. "We're detecting unusual energy patterns from the human vessels." Trell frowned. "Weapons?" "No, sir, they appear to be powering up some kind of communication array. They're directing a massive amount of energy into their communication systems." "Communication? Now?" Trell's frown deepened. In thousands of years of Imperial expansion, no species had ever responded to an attack by trying to talk. They either fought back or surrendered. "Sir," Kell interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously." "Put it through," Trell ordered. The main view screen remained blank, but 3 simple words appeared, transmitted in perfect Imperial standard. "We are human." Trell stared at the message in confusion. "Is that all?" Before anyone could answer, the message began appearing on every screen throughout the bridge. The navigation console, the weapons control station, the environmental systems, all displayed the same 3 words. "Shut it down," Trell commanded as alarms began to sound across the bridge. "How are they accessing our systems?" The crew worked frantically at their stations, but the message continued to spread. Combat systems failed, navigation went offline, life support flickered. "High Commander," the science officer called, her voice rising with concern. "There's some kind of information package attached to the transmission. It's bypassing our firewalls and downloading directly into our central database." "Isolate the main computer," Trell ordered. "Cut all connections to the fleet network." "It's too late," Kell reported. "The package has already spread to every ship in the fleet, and it's—" He hesitated, his 4 hands moving rapidly over his console. "It's connecting to our neural interfaces. Every member of the Imperial fleet wore a neural implant that connected them to their ships and to each other. It was how the Empire maintained perfect coordination among its vast forces. But now, those same implants were becoming a vulnerability. Disconnect all neural interfaces immediately," Trell commanded, reaching up to deactivate his own implant. But before he could touch it, information began flooding into his mind. Images, sounds, emotions, history, human history. Back on the Earth, flagship Resilience, Commander Davis watched as the Imperial advance halted. The alien ships stopped firing, hanging motionless in space like a swarm of deadly insects suddenly frozen in time. "It's working," Lieutenant Wilson whispered from her station. "The transmission is penetrating their systems." Davis nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and tension. "Phase 1 complete. Now we wait to see if Phase 2 accomplishes what our scientists predicted." Protocol Omega wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was an information package, a complete history of humanity. Every war, every atrocity, every act of kindness, every triumph against impossible odds. Along with it was a sophisticated virus designed to integrate this information directly into the Empire's neural networks. The plan had been developed after Earth's first contact with Ambassador Rolk 6 months ago, when the diplomatic team returned. From that meeting, they brought with them crucial intelligence. The Empire's military forces used neural implants to maintain communication and coordination. Earth's greatest minds had worked day and night to create a program that could infiltrate those implants and deliver a message that weapons never could. "Let them see us," Davis had told his crew when explaining the plan. "Let them understand what they're facing." "Sir," called the sensor officer, "I'm detecting power fluctuations throughout the Imperial fleet. Their weapon systems are going offline." Davis nodded. "Maintain current position. All ships stand by." "Do you think they'll listen?" Wilson asked quietly, so only Davis could hear. "They don't have a choice," Davis replied. Right now, their entire neural network is being flooded with our history. Everything we've ever done, good and bad. Wilson's expression was troubled. Some of that history isn't very flattering, sir. No, Davis agreed. But that's the point. We're not hiding who we are. We're showing them exactly what they're dealing with. High Commander Trell staggered as the information continued to flood into his mind through his neural implant. He saw humans fighting wars that spanned their entire planet. He witnessed their determination to survive against plagues, natural disasters, and their own self-destructive tendencies. He saw how quickly they had advanced from primitive technology to space travel, how they had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times but always rebuilt, how they valued individual freedom above all else and would fight to the death to preserve it. Most disturbing of all, he saw their response to threats. Throughout their history, humans had displayed an almost irrational refusal to surrender even when faced with overwhelming odds. They would endure unimaginable suffering rather than submit to rule they deemed unjust. High Commander? Kell's voice seemed to come from far away. We must retreat. Our systems are compromised and this information, it's affecting the crew. Trell looked around the bridge. His officers were at their stations, but their expressions showed the same shock and disbelief he felt. Many were viewing scenes from human history through their implants, watching as these primitives fought battles more devastating than anything in Imperial records. The Imperial database contained information on thousands of species. Most had been easy to conquer or assimilate. Others had required more forceful subjugation. But none had ever shown the combination of traits that humans possessed. Their adaptability, their tenacity, their willingness to die for abstract concepts like freedom. This species doesn't surrender, Trell murmured, even when victory is impossible. One particular image kept repeating in his mind, a single human standing defiantly in front of a column of tanks, refusing to move despite certain death. It was from an internal human conflict centuries ago, but it perfectly captured what made these creatures so dangerous. Sir, we're losing control of our ship's systems, reported the engineering officer. The human virus is embedded too deeply. We can maintain life support and engines, but weapons and shields will take days to restore. Trell made his decision. In his 10,000 years commanding Imperial forces, he had never retreated. But he had also never encountered a species like humanity. Signal all vessels, he ordered. Disengage and withdraw to the edge of this solar system. Kell looked shocked. Withdraw? But the Council of Elders ordered. The Council didn't receive this information, Trell interrupted. They don't know what we're facing. These humans... He struggled to find the right words. They're unlike anything in our records. If we attempt to conquer them now, while our systems are compromised, they will fight with everything they have. And based on what I've seen, that would be costly. Throughout the Imperial fleet, similar realizations were dawning. The humans had not built a large fleet because they didn't need to. They had a different kind of weapon altogether, themselves. Slowly, the massive alien armada began to move away from Earth's defensive perimeter. Not in defeat, but in tactical retreat, to reassess a situation that had suddenly become far more complex than a simple conquest. Commander Davis stood motionless on the bridge of the Resilience, watching the main screen as the Imperial fleet pulled back. No one spoke. The only sounds were the soft beeps of consoles and the hum of life support systems. They're retreating, to the edge of the solar system, Lieutenant Wilson finally said, breaking the silence. All ships maintaining formation, but their weapon systems appear to be offline. Davis nodded slowly. Any communication from them? No, sir. Not since our transmission. Protocol Omega had been deployed just 20 minutes ago, and already the most powerful military force in the known galaxy was withdrawing. Davis felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that Earth had been spared, pride in humanity's ingenuity, but also concern about what would come next. Sir, called the communications officer, Admiral Thomas is requesting a status update. Put him through, Davis ordered. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of hope and disbelief. Commander, our sensors show the Imperial fleet is withdrawing. Is this accurate? Yes, sir. They ceased fire shortly after we deployed Protocol Omega and are now pulling back to the edge of the system. Thomas exhaled slowly. It worked then. The information package penetrated their neural network. It appears so, sir. Their ship stopped firing almost immediately, based on their erratic movements afterward. I believe their systems were significantly compromised. Casualties? Thomas asked grimly. Davis checked the report on his tablet. The Defender and Guardian took heavy damage before Protocol Omega activated. 12 confirmed dead, 35 injured. Rescue operations are underway. Thomas closed his eyes briefly. 12 too many, but far fewer than we expected. Sir, Wilson interrupted, we're receiving a communication request from the Imperial flagship. Both Davis and Thomas straightened. Put it through, they said simultaneously. Ambassador Rolk's face appeared on the screen, but something about him had changed. The diplomat's usually impassive expression now showed signs of strain, and his movement seemed less fluid than before. Commander Davis, Rolk said, his translator struggling to match his agitated speech pattern. What have you done to our systems? Davis met the alien's gaze steadily. We showed you who we are, Ambassador. Nothing more, nothing less. You infiltrated our neural network. You compromised our entire fleet. We shared information, Davis corrected. Your neural implant simply made it impossible for you to ignore that information. Admiral Thomas spoke up. Ambassador, your fleet came here to conquer or destroy us. We defended ourselves with the least violent means at our disposal. Rolk's eyes narrowed. By violating our minds? By forcing your history into our thoughts? Would you have preferred we destroyed your ships and killed your people? Davis asked quietly. Because those were the only other options you left us. The ambassador fell silent, clearly struggling with this perspective. I need to speak with High Commander Trell, Rolk finally said. The screen changed to show the Imperial military commander. Trell's tall gray form seemed less imposing now, his posture slightly hunched as if carrying a new weight. Commander Davis, Trell said, his voice measured, your species has developed a most unconventional defense mechanism. We use the tools available to us, Davis replied. And sometimes information is the most powerful tool of all. Trell studied Davis for a long moment. In 10,000 years commanding Imperial forces, I have conquered 47 worlds and negotiated the peaceful surrender of 32 others. Never have I encountered a species that responded to our ultimatum as yours has. Humans have a long history of finding unexpected solutions to seemingly impossible problems, Davis said. Yes, Trell agreed. Your history makes that abundantly clear. It is now spreading throughout our fleet, being absorbed by every member of our crew through their neural implants. They are seeing what you wanted us to see. And what do you see, High Commander? Admiral Thomas asked. Trell's expression became distant, as if looking at something only he could perceive. I see a species that has nearly destroyed itself countless times, yet always survives. I see beings who fight among themselves constantly, yet unite instantly, against outside threats. I see creativity and determination that exceeds anything in our records. He focused on the humans again. Most concerning of all, I see a species that does not understand the concept of surrender. Even facing certain destruction, your kind would fight until the last human falls. That's a fair assessment, Davis acknowledged. On the Imperial flagship, Trell turned away from the communication screen and faced Officer Kell, who stood waiting for orders. Status of our systems? Trell asked. Life support and engines are stable, Kell reported. Navigation is partially restored. Weapons and shields remain offline. The human virus continues to spread through our network, but it appears to be transmitting information rather than causing damage. Trell nodded. And the crew? Kell hesitated. Disturbed, sir. The human history flooding through our neural interfaces is difficult to process. There are reports of distress throughout the fleet. Understandable, Trell said. I feel it myself. He walked to the view screen and stared at the small blue planet hanging in the distance. So small, yet home to creatures unlike any the Empire had encountered in its long history. The human information package contained more than just their wars and conflicts. It showed their art, their music, their literature, a creativity that bordered on chaotic. It showed their scientific discoveries, advancing in decades what had taken other species centuries. It showed their values, their beliefs, their unshakable conviction that freedom was worth any price. Most imperial species had evolved slowly, developing technology over hundreds of thousands of years, learning restraint and caution along the way. Humans had exploded from primitive beings to space travelers in an evolutionary blink of an eye. "They're dangerous," Kel said quietly, joining Trell at the view screen. "Yes," Trell agreed, "but not in the way we expected." One image from the human package kept returning to Trell's mind. A small group of humans standing against a vastly larger force, knowing they would die, but refusing to yield. This pattern repeated throughout their history, at places called Thermopylae, the Alamo, Masada. The Empire had always succeeded through overwhelming force or the threat of it. But what happens when such threats mean nothing to the species you're facing? "Sir," said the communications officer, "Ambassador Rolk is requesting instructions. The Council of Elders will expect a report soon." Trell turned from the view screen. "Tell the ambassador to inform the Council that we are reassessing the situation. The humans have deployed an unexpected defensive measure that requires careful analysis." "And our actual plan, sir?" Kel asked once the communications officer had moved away. Trell lowered his voice. "We maintain position at the edge of this system while our technical teams work to purge the human virus from our networks. Once our weapons are back online, we will have options. And if the virus cannot be purged, then we face a more difficult decision." Trell looked back at the distant Earth. The Empire cannot afford a war of attrition with a species like this. One, the cost would be prohibitive. On the Resilience, Davis and his crew monitored the Imperial fleet's position at the edge of the solar system. "They're maintaining distance but not leaving," Wilson noted. "Their systems must still be compromised." Davis nodded. "They're buying time, trying to regain control of their technology." "Will they attack again once they do?" she asked. "Maybe," Davis said, "but I don't think so. Protocol Omega wasn't just about disabling their ships temporarily. It was about making them understand exactly what they're facing." Wilson looked at the tactical display showing the vastly larger Imperial fleet. "But they still outnumber us. Their technology is still superior." "Numbers and technology aren't everything," Davis replied. "Sometimes understanding your enemy is the most important advantage of all." He turned to the communications officer. "Prepare a message to the Imperial flagship. Tell them we're ready to discuss terms whenever they are." The real battle, Davis knew, was no longer happening in space. It was taking place in the minds of the Imperial forces as they absorbed humanity's history, as they came to understand what it would truly mean to make an enemy of Earth. 3 days had passed since the Imperial fleet had withdrawn to the edge of the solar system. 3 days of tense waiting as both sides assessed their positions. On the bridge of the Resilience, Commander Davis studied the latest sensor readings. The alien ships remained in formation, their engines running at minimum power. Occasional energy spikes suggested they were working to restore their systems, but so far, they had made no aggressive moves. "Any response to our communication?" Davis asked Lieutenant Wilson. "Nothing official," she replied, "but we're picking up increased transmissions between their ships. They seem to be having some kind of internal debate." Davis nodded. Protocol Omega continued to work as designed. The complete history of humanity was spreading through the Imperial neural network, being absorbed by every member of their fleet. It wasn't just the virus disrupting their systems now. It was the knowledge itself causing confusion. "Sir," called the communications officer, "incoming transmission from the Imperial flagship." "Put it through," Davis ordered, straightening his uniform. The screen lit up, but instead of Ambassador Rolk, it showed High Commander Trell. The alien leader looked different, his posture less rigid, his eyes showing a weariness that hadn't been there before. "Commander Davis," Trell began, "I wish to discuss the current situation." "I'm listening, High Commander." Trell seemed to choose his words carefully. Your information package has created a complex situation within our fleet. My crew has been exposed to your species' history in a way that is causing significant distress. Davis nodded. We anticipated that possibility. Did you? Trell's eyes narrowed slightly. Then you understand that forcing such knowledge upon us could be considered an act of aggression. We consider it an act of self-defense, Davis countered. You came to conquer us. We showed you why that would be more difficult than you expected. Trell was silent for a moment. I have commanded Imperial forces for 10,000 years, Commander. In that time, I have encountered hundreds of species. Some fought, some surrendered, all eventually accepted their place within the Empire. Humans are different, Davis said simply. Yes, Trell agreed, surprising Davis with his candor. That has become abundantly clear. On the Imperial flagship Inevitable Victory, Trell ended the transmission and turned to the small group of senior officers gathered in his private command chamber. These were his most trusted advisors, representing different species within the Empire. The human virus continues to resist our efforts to purge it, reported the chief engineer, a bulky six-limbed being named Mox. It has integrated itself too deeply into our neural network. Each time we remove it from one system, it reappears in another. And the information it carries? Trell asked. Impossible to separate from the virus, Mox admitted. They are somehow encoded together. Officer Kell spoke next. High Commander, we must discuss the crew's condition. The human history flowing through our neural implants is causing significant psychological stress. Many officers report difficulty sleeping. Some are questioning our mission here. Trell had experienced this himself. Human history was violent, chaotic, and contradictory. They fought wars over territory, resources, ideology, and religion. They committed atrocities against their own kind, but they also created beauty, showed compassion, and accomplished remarkable feats against impossible odds. Most disturbing was their resilience. Whenever humans faced extinction, from natural disasters, plagues, or their own weapons, they not only survived but emerged stronger. I've been studying one particular period of their history, said Science Officer Vora, the oldest member of Trell's inner circle. Her species was known for their analytical abilities and perfect memory. They call it World War II. Within the span of 6 years, they developed nuclear weapons from theoretical concept to devastating reality. 6 years? Kell seemed shocked. That level of advancement should take centuries. Precisely, Vora said. When threatened, these humans accelerate their technological development at rates that defy all known patterns. If we attempt to conquer them and fail, they might advance beyond our capabilities within a single generation. Trell moved to the viewport, gazing at the distant blue planet. The Council of Elders ordered us to subjugate or eliminate this species, because they advance too quickly. They fear humans will eventually threaten the Empire. With respect, High Commander, Vora said carefully. The Council's fear may be justified, but their approach is flawed. Attempting to conquer these humans would almost certainly trigger the very acceleration we fear. Trell turned back to his officers. You are suggesting we withdraw completely? Allow them to continue developing without Imperial guidance? I am suggesting, Vora replied, that we must reconsider what Imperial guidance means in this case. The standard approach would likely fail with catastrophic consequences. The room fell silent as each officer processed this unprecedented situation. In its long history, the Empire had never retreated from a planned conquest. But they had also never encountered a species like humanity. There is something else in their history, Kell said quietly, something I find difficult to understand. These humans form alliances with former enemies. After their wars end, they often help rebuild the very nations they fought against. Mox nodded his massive head. I observed this as well. Their martial plan after their Second World War. They rebuilt their enemies' civilizations instead of exploiting them. Such behavior is irrational, stated the security chief, a reptilian officer named Drex. Is it? Vora challenged. Or is it a different kind of rationality, one based on long-term stability rather than immediate gain? Trell considered this. The Empire maintained peace through power and control. Humans seemed to seek peace through cooperation and mutual benefit, at least sometimes when they weren't busy fighting each other. We need more time, Trell finally decided. Time to fully analyze this information and determine the best course of action. Back on Earth, Davis was meeting with Admiral Thomas and the Defense Council in a secure underground facility. Representatives from every major nation were present, either in person or via secure video link. The Imperial fleet remains at the edge of our system, Davis reported. They've made no aggressive moves since their initial attack. Can we trust this apparent restraint? Asked the representative from India. I believe they're genuinely reassessing their options, Davis replied. Protocol Omega is having the effect we hoped for. They're beginning to understand what it would mean to make an enemy of humanity. The representative from Brazil leaned forward. And if they decide to attack again anyway? Admiral Thomas answered. Then we implement the second phase of Protocol Omega. Several council members exchanged uneasy glances. The second phase was even more controversial than the first, not because it was more violent, but because it required an unprecedented level of honesty. Are we certain that's wise? Asked the European Union representative. Revealing that information could be seen as a sign of weakness, or a sign of confidence, countered the representative from Kenya. It shows we have nothing to hide. Davis spoke up. The Empire values control and predictability. They see humanity's rapid advancement as dangerous precisely because we're unpredictable. By showing them our complete history, including our greatest failures and darkest moments, we're demonstrating that we understand our own nature. And that understanding, Thomas added, is what makes us different from the primitive species they expected to find. The council chamber's main screen lit up with an incoming transmission alert. It's the Imperial flagship, announced the communications officer. Davis and Thomas exchanged looks. Put it through, Thomas ordered. Ambassador Rolk appeared on screen, his purple-scaled face now composed but somehow changed. Earth Defense Council, he began formally. High Commander Trell requests a direct meeting with your leaders. He proposes neutral ground, a space station at the midpoint between our current positions. Thomas raised an eyebrow. To discuss what exactly? Terms, Rolk replied. Not for your surrender, he added quickly, seeing the humans' reactions, but for a potential relationship between Earth and the Empire that differs from our standard protocols. Davis felt a surge of cautious hope. This was more than they had dared expect, not just a retreat, but an opening for genuine negotiation. We will consider the request and respond shortly, Thomas said diplomatically. After the transmission ended, the council erupted in discussion. Davis remained silent, watching the reactions around the table. Some were suspicious, others hopeful. All recognized the historical significance of this moment. Finally, Thomas called for order. We have shown them who we are, he said. Now they must decide what to do with that knowledge. And if they decide we're too dangerous to allow our continued independence? Asked the Chinese representative. Davis answered, then they'll learn that knowing who we are is just the beginning. They still have to discover what we're capable of. The space station hung in the void between Earth and the Imperial fleet, a small neutral ground hastily constructed for this historic meeting. Inside its main conference chamber, two groups faced each other across a simple metal table. Commander. Davis sat with Admiral Thomas and 3 members of Earth's Defense Council. Opposite them were High Commander Trell, Ambassador Rolk, and 2 other Imperial officials. The tension in the room was palpable. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Trell began formally. The situation between our civilizations has taken an unexpected turn. Indeed, Admiral Thomas replied, though I suspect it was more unexpected for you than for us. Trell's expression remained neutral, but Davis noticed a subtle change in his posture. The Imperial commander had spent the past week absorbing human history through his neural implant. That knowledge had clearly affected him. Your Protocol Omega, Trell said, was an innovative defense strategy. Rather than meeting our weapons with your own, you chose to show us who you are. We used the tools available to us, Davis responded. Yes, Trell agreed. But in doing so, you've created a complex situation. Your history, your nature, is now known to our entire fleet. It cannot be unknown. Ambassador Rolk spoke next, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into smooth English. The Council of Elders ordered us to either bring Earth under Imperial control or eliminate your species entirely. They feared your rapid technological advancement and unpredictable behavior. And now? Thomas asked. Trell and Rolk exchanged glances. Now, Trell said carefully, we must reconsider our approach. Your history reveals patterns that concern us. What specifically concerns you, High Commander? Davis asked, though he already suspected the answer. Your species fights, Trell stated. You fight constantly, over resources, territory, ideology. You've brought yourselves to the brink of extinction multiple times. True, Thomas acknowledged. Yet you also create. You build. You help enemies after defeating them. You sacrifice for abstract principles. Trell leaned forward slightly. Most concerning of all, when threatened with extinction, you do not surrender. You fight harder. You innovate faster. You overcome odds that should be impossible. Davis nodded. That's an accurate assessment of human nature. The Empire has encountered thousands of species, Rolk explained. We classify them, understand their patterns, and integrate them accordingly. But your species defies classification. You are predictably unpredictable. Which brings us to our current situation, Trell continued. The Empire cannot afford a protracted conflict with Earth. Based on your history, attempting to conquer you would likely trigger an acceleration in your development that could ultimately threaten the Empire itself. The human delegates exchanged glances. This was precisely what they had hoped Protocol Omega would achieve, making the Empire understand that conquering Earth would be too costly even for them. What are you proposing, High Commander? Thomas asked. A relationship unlike any the Empire has established before, Trell replied. Not conquest, not subjugation, something new. As the negotiations continued, Lieutenant Wilson waited nervously on the Resilience, monitoring communications from the space station. If the talks failed, she would be responsible for implementing the second phase of Protocol Omega. Any update? Asked the tactical officer, voicing what everyone on the bridge was thinking. Wilson shook her head. Still talking. That's a good sign. The bridge crew remained at their stations, tense but hopeful. The entire fleet was on high alert, ready to act if the Imperial ships made any threatening moves. Do you think they'll really leave us alone? The communications officer asked quietly. I don't know, Wilson admitted. But Commander Davis believed Protocol Omega would work. He said once they truly understood us, they'd realize the cost of making us their enemy. The tactical display showed the Imperial fleet still maintaining position at the edge of the solar system. Their weapons remained offline, not from the virus anymore, but by choice. It was a sign of good faith during the negotiations. Wilson thought about the information package they had sent to the aliens, humanity's complete history, unfiltered and honest, their greatest achievements alongside their darkest moments, their capacity for cruelty matched by their capacity for compassion, their stubborn refusal to surrender, even when faced with impossible odds. It was a gamble, she murmured, showing them everything about us, good and bad. But that's what made it work, the tactical officer replied. We didn't just show them our strength. We showed them who we are. In the space station conference room, the negotiations had reached a critical point. The Council of Elders will not easily accept this arrangement, Rolk warned. In 10,000 years, no species has been granted the status you are requesting. Then perhaps it's time for the Empire to evolve, Thomas suggested, just as all successful civilizations must. Trell's expression remained unreadable, but Davis could sense his internal conflict. The Imperial commander was caught between his duty to the Empire and the new understanding he had gained of humanity. There is one more matter to discuss, Trell said after a pause. Your ship. Davis raised an eyebrow. Which ship? The one you call Resilience, Trell clarified. In our language, its name translates closer to dangerous ship. We initially thought this referred to its weapons capabilities, but now we understand it refers to something else entirely. Thomas nodded. The name represents a quality our species values. The ability to recover from difficulties, to adapt and overcome challenges. Yes, Trell said. We have observed this quality throughout your history. It is what makes your kind simultaneously admirable and concerning. He stood, signaling that the meeting was reaching its conclusion. I will recommend to the Council of Elders that Earth be classified as a sovereign territory, outside normal Imperial protocols. We will establish diplomatic relations, but Earth will remain independent. And if the Council rejects your recommendation? Thomas asked. Then I will inform them of what we have learned, Trell replied. That the ship is dangerous not for what it carries, but for who pilots it. 3 days later, Davis stood on the observation deck of the Resilience, watching as the Imperial fleet prepared to depart the solar system. Lieutenant Wilson joined him, handing him a tablet with the latest reports. They're really leaving, she said, still sounding surprised. Davis nodded. The first delegation will remain behind to establish formal diplomatic relations. The rest are returning to Imperial space to report to the Council of Elders. Do you think they'll honor the agreement? I think they understand the alternative, Davis replied. Protocol Omega didn't just show them our history, it showed them our potential. On the main view screen, they could see Ambassador Rolk's transmission to all Earth vessels. The Imperial diplomat's final message was brief but significant. The Empire acknowledges Earth as a sovereign power. Our civilizations will proceed as equals in future relations. The Council of Elders has classified human space as restricted territory for all Imperial forces. Your species' designation has been updated from potential threat to independent ally. After the transmission ended, Wilson asked, What happens now, sir? Davis turned from the viewport to face his crew. They had been prepared to fight and die to protect Earth. Instead, they had won without firing a shot. Now, he said, we move forward. The galaxy just got a lot more complicated. As the Imperial fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Davis thought about everything that had led to this moment. Humanity's first encounter with an advanced alien civilization could have ended in conquest or extinction. Instead, it had ended with respect. Not because of Earth's military might, but because of humanity's nature. The Empire had come to conquer a primitive species. They had fled from a dangerous one, not because humans were violent or aggressive, though they could be both. Not because humans had powerful weapons, though they continued to develop them. But because humans possessed something the Empire had never encountered before. An unbreakable spirit, a relentless drive to overcome any obstacle, and the creativity to find solutions where none seemed possible. The Empire's first war with humans had ended with a single message. We are human. It was all they needed to say.